The Civil War was a war that was fought between the Federal North and Confederate South from 1861 to 1865. Many people probably wonder what exactly a Civil War soldier did during this time in the war, which is why I decided to sit down with David Smith, a Confederate soldier reenactor, to get the lowdown on what being a soldier was like.
So how and when did you first get involved in Civil War reenacting?
Well, it was about 20 years ago. A friend of mine and I went to an event at an historical museum, and there were a group of reenactors set up there, and we got talking with them. They invited us to one of their events, and we went to that, and it was just pretty much on from there. The majority of our reenacting was done on the actual battlefields, or fairly close to them, so mostly Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Well, it's a bunch of people, mostly with an interest in history, that get together and reenact the major battles of the Civil War. And we pay pretty close attention to what actually happened. They are scripted most of the times, where one side, the side that won the battle, will win the battle. Sometimes we have what's called tacticals, where you'll actually have the officers commanding make a difference in the outcome of the battle, depending on how well they command or not.
How the officers commanded had a lot to do with what kind of first person they had to adapt to.
In Civil War reenacting, we have what's called adopting a first person. Basically, it is researching an individual from the period and acting as that person would have, speaking as that person would have, and when you are doing reenacting, the 21st century ceases to exist. You don't know about television, you don't know about radio. If someone asks you about those things, you're, huh?
No matter what kind of reenacting you do, you have to adopt a first-person attitude. And there were many different types of reenacting. 2 examples were being infantry or being cavalry.
I did 2 kinds of reenacting. At one time I was an infantryman, so I used a rifle musket, carried the usual equipment.
Canteens, tin cup, most of the other stuff was leather. You'd have a case for your caps, usually a couple hats with you in case you lost one or it was destroyed, and a haversack that would carry all your other equipment with.
One of the things you could carry in a haversack is food.
What would be like basically a regular meal that you would have eaten back during that time?
Cornmeal, maybe bacon if you had it, whatever you could find along the roadside. It was pretty much just foraging for the most part. Actual supplies, I mean, they had army bread, this hardtack stuff that was impossible to eat. Most of the time it was broken up, mixed with water and a little bacon grease. That made it almost edible.
In addition to crappy food, there can be other bigger problems that arise from reenacting.
We were advancing on the Federals once, and they was about to flank us, so I was part of a group that ran around through this mucky bog of a place to prevent being flanked. Got my knee up to the, leg up to the knee in mud, and I kept going forward and my knee down stayed in that position and almost destroyed my left knee. So for the longest time, I was having trouble even walking, and I was wondering if I'd ever even get to reenact anymore. It was such a bad injury. But after a while, it got better, and I got back into reenacting, so no real problem.
But don't be fooled. Reenactors also have a good time despite their crazy conditions.
One of my favorite things to recollect about reenacting took place at a reenactment of the Battle of Antietam. And as you might know, the Confederates didn't have much of a quartermaster. We didn't have that much supply, so like as not, our pants had holes in the seat. Most people, if they had shoes, had no soles. So it was a common practice on the battlefield, if you found somebody had better clothes than you had, to stop and relieve them of them. So in the middle of this major engagement, here we are falling back, one of our company stopped, took off his old shoes, and this guy that was supposedly dead is a corpse on the ground. He takes his shoes off, takes time to put them on, lace them up, and then gets up and trots off the battlefield.
With a soldier like David fighting for the South during the Civil War, maybe the South would have won. Guess we'll never know.
How they beat the blood.